I'll give a introduction. And welcome to Gunner Shot. Today we're going to continue our series of command, women in command, command in the army, leadership, all that. In fact, today is the second talk we're going to have. And to talk us through this and discuss issues, I have with me General Satish Dua. As you all know, General Satish Dua, he's been awarded a Sena Medal for gallantry. He commanded his unit across the LC in operations. Uh, he commanded his division in the east, again in operations. He commanded his brigade in operations, and he commanded the Srinagar Corps. But be that as it may, I think this is a very important topic. Uh, we are going to talk and we're going to use his experience. And this is just the second in the series of command. We're going to have more. First, good evening, General Dua. Welcome back to Gunner Shot. We've not met for a long time. How are you and what have you been doing?
Good evening, sir. Thank you for having me on Gunner Shot. Yes, we haven't met for a long time, but I have been busy. Last talk that we had was on my second book, A General Reminisces, which is about the story of a soldier, a terrorist who became a soldier and then turned a hero from my regiment, and my own experiences of J&K. Right now, I'm busy with my third book. My next book is with HarperCollins, coming out early next year, and hopefully we'll talk about that when it is published. I'm in the process of editing, and in the process also of making the audiobook for the second book. So
Oh, that's
good
great.
to talk about. Yes,
That's great. And I hope
thank
you write a fourth book on command,
you. Yes, that has been in my
right?
mind.
I think, yeah, leadership and command. Right. Let me set the stage and before I yield the floor to General Dua. You know, the topic which I chose, the privileges of command. S is in brackets. Let me let me make it very clear at the outset, and this is my view. Command is a privilege given to an officer. It is not a bed of privileges where you can draw, you have to give. That's the first thing people have to understand. The second thing, command is very important. There are no runners up in war, and poor commanding officers lose wars or contribute to the army is losing wars. The unit, whether it's an infantry battalion, an artillery unit, or armored regiment, or a signal regiment, or engineer regiment, remains the bedrock on which the pyramid of the army stands. It's the wall which faces the brunt of enemy action, right? And the commanding officer of this unit is the most important commander in the army. He is the linchpin on which the army thrives. In good old days, people used to say, look, if I've commanded a unit, that's it. That was my ambition. It was people's life ambition was commanding a unit. Now, a little bit of command. Command is very unique, right? Uh, in fact, you'll be surprised to know the powers vested in a commanding officer are beyond that which a head of state or a head of government even has. You'll be surprised. There are certain things only the commanding officer can do, not even our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, can do. None of us can do. It's only the commanding officer. It's a unique assignment. And this uniqueness is not just in the Indian Army, the Navy, or the Air Force, it is across all armies. right? If you read the book Crisis in Command in the Second World War, the crisis in command was all about unit command. And the crisis in command in the American Army at unit level led to their losing Vietnam War. It's one of the finest books on command. And those of you who want to know more about command, I would recommend read it. It's very old. You have to get it back from memory and then realize what command is all about, right? And this is the only appointment in the entire world where you are the judge, the jury, and the executioner, and there's no appeal against you. There is no appeal against the commanding officer's verdict. They can be a technically you can set aside his uh, sentence, but otherwise judgmentally you can't. That is the power, the summary powers of a commanding officer. And for the some powers he is vested in, there is a lot which is expected out of him. But at the end of the day, the commanding officer is given the privilege to command. And that is what we are going to discuss today. With this introduction, I'd request General Satish Dua, please take over.
Thank you, sir. And Jain viewers, it's uh, it's also a privilege to talk about command to all those of you who are interested. Uh, I initially I'll spend a few minutes to give a little bit of an explainer. I must differentiate between leadership and command, and then we should take on what are the levels of command. So I have jotted a few points which are very important. How leadership is different from command. I have jotted the points only because I should not go wrong in the sequence. So command of troops. Before I come to General Shankar spoke at length about battalion commander's command, which is what it is. Any, which is absolutely right. Any officer aspires to command the unit, preferably the unit that he was commissioned in. And second aspiration is that he leads his men in combat, because that's what soldiers are meant for. I was fortunate, I got both. I commanded my own battalion and I led them in combat. And God has been kind, I led them with great success. Results speak for themselves. But getting back to the issue, and we'll come to command of battalion and other commands later, because what is the difference between command of a section or a command of a battalion or a command of a corps? We'll talk about that. But let me try and explain what is command. So command is different only from leading. Command, and I've jotted down 7, 8 points. First, command of troops in army, it entails leading and directing. So you do lead, you do direct, you provide guidance, direction, supervision of troops. So leading and directing is the first function of command. Decision making. It is very important to take decisions. Correct decision at the correct time will save lives, because in our business, like General Shankar said, there are no runners up. So you have to, we are in that situation of kill or be killed. So decisions have to be correct. It's like a fighter pilot's decision. It has to be a split-second decision. And most of these decisions are made under tactical pressure, especially for a battalion commander. Under pressure, you don't have the luxury of sitting down and having a conference and then taking a decision at the end of it, having a meeting and getting inputs. You have to do it on the fly, like a pilot, I said. Then he also has to train his command. So training and mentoring is an important function of command, because you have to prepare your men for war. You have to train them and mentor them. Discipline and accountability. We'll speak about this at length. General Shankar also dwelt on it to say, if you have to perform these functions, or you have to deliver combat outcomes with soldiers who are risking their lives, and more importantly, your decisions or their actions can put at risk the lives of others. So accountability and discipline is very important. And that's what he meant by he has wide sweeping powers. And we'll discuss that. But it's not only disciplining them, it is also their welfare and safety is his function, is his responsibility of a commander at any level. Employment of troops tactically is his function, but also is the logistics support. So it is becoming more and more comprehensive. Logistics support to those operations, operational logistics, and even welfare logistics is his function. Communication. Communicating effectively with his troops, with his superiors, with other stakeholders is very important for command. And the last thing that I have noted, I'm sure there may be more issues, but I just picked on a few. Morale. You have to keep up the morale of troops, even under adversity. When things are stacking up against you, when the chips are down, you have to keep up the morale and, importantly, cohesion. Cohesion is another very important thing that a battalion commander must keep up, or any command. So, like General Shankar said, command of troops is a proud privilege that every officer aspires from. But in the army, command is at our hierarchy, and our nature of our job demands that we have commanders at every levels. Section, the the smallest grouping consists of 10 men. It has a section commander. Now, section commander is a Havaldar. And when General Shankar and I were commissioned, he used to be a Nayak. He is only slightly senior, and he doesn't have great responsibilities. He only has to execute orders that are passed down to him by his superiors. So, command of a section commander is, I wouldn't even call him a leader. He was more of a role model because he's one amongst them with a little more experience. 3 sections make a platoon. So there is a platoon commander above him. The platoon commander also ensures that his section commanders, 3 of them, carry out his orders, but he is a bridge between the company commander and the section commander, because 3 platoons make a company. A company is about 120 men, which is commanded by a major. And yes, that is the basic subunit of war. You say one company will attack from this side, the other company will attack from this side, one company will be in reserve. So company becomes the basic subunit of war. And as far as attacking, assaulting is concerned, other units have different composition. I am from infantry, so I'll just take that example. 4 rifle companies, assaulting companies, make a battalion. There are other support elements, support company, administrative company. Artillery regiment, like General Shankar is from artillery. Artillery regiment has 3 batteries. So they are tailored as per our requirements. But battalion command, we are going to spend bulk of our time today in discussing this battalion command, as you also got the impression from General Shankar's opening context that he set for the discussion. Command of a battalion is it is the privilege we are talking about. Everyone aspires to command his battalion, his regiment. Like artillery is called a regiment, meaning his unit. Basic. What is the basic unit? So what happens there is the colonel's command is the first or true test of independent leadership, because here, to put it bluntly, the buck stops with him. The buck stops here. That famous adage is very applicable, very well applicable to the battalion commander. He's called CO, the commanding officer, and he is known as father of the battalion. You had a family of about 1,000 troops, plus or minus, depending on which arm we are talking about. That is a great responsibility. Knowing that the CO has to behave accordingly. He leads by personal example, whether it is his conduct, social conduct, in operations, his mannerisms, his drill, his turnout, everything. He leads by personal example. People follow him to hell and back. In fact, there's the old quote which says, There are no good or bad battalions. There are only good or bad colonels. Colonels meaning commanding officers. So one commanding officer can come and turn around the morale of a battalion, the operational efficacy of a battalion, or not so good leader can actually put them down. The well-performing battalion may not be able to achieve the necessary, I'm sorry, necessary outcomes. How does he do that? The commanding officer, he he is uh, constantly. I hate to use the phrase, but it's a fact. He's constantly under pressure. He's under pressure to perform. He's under pressure to deliver outcomes. Anything and everything that goes wrong in the battalion, he is held responsible for it. Sometimes people say a battalion commander, a CO who gets some award at the end of his tenure, they say, why does he get the award? The troops are the ones, the soldiers are the one who acquitted themselves bravely. I always say true. But so does a commanding officer get sacked or he bears the brunt if any soldier makes a mistake in peacetime or otherwise. So command is a very tricky responsibility. It is also a very lonely responsibility because you may have discussions with your subordinates, but the last few steps you must walk alone. That means at the end, decision has to be taken by you. This gets actually, this command being a lonely responsibility becomes trickier as we move up the ladder. I mean, we'll still, at the end, we'll also talk about the command of a brigade, division, a corps, or army. So it'll happen. But there, it becomes more and more lonely, though you have exposure to more inputs and more advice. But eventually, decisions have to be taken by leaders, and that is the tricky part. So when a battalion commander has to perform in operations, he is given, he has to have enough powers to make sure, like I said earlier, that he has to ensure that his soldiers are cohesive. Also, he is responsible for the actions of his soldiers who can uh, put into peril the life of his comrades. So, if a soldier is being unsoldierly, cowardly, or indisciplined, he has to be disciplined. And there is not always time to refer to courts, etc. In the Navy, the ship is at sea. The commanding officer of the ship, colloquially always called captain of the ship, is is given wide and sweeping powers. There are He has much more powers because he is at sea, literally and figuratively. He is at sea. There is no one who can influence. You cannot take this man to a higher level. So similarly, a battalion commander in field in operations is given powers. It may surprise you. He can actually put a soldier under arrest. Like General Shankar said, he is the judge, jury, and executioner. He can put a soldier under unit arrest for 28 days within the unit. And his summary powers exceed that. His summary powers are that means he can do a summary court martial, which involves a lengthy procedure. It's a proper court of which he is the judge. There are other, there's a proper attorney, like a defense counsel, and all that process is there without getting into details. But he can award 89 days of imprisonment in a civil jail. That is the kind of powers he has. And he can impose a 14 days uh, pay fine. Now, General Shankar was right to say that he said not even the prime minister can do it. No, that's in manner of speaking, but it's a fact. He can't. What to say of that? When I was the brigade commander and I was taking a conference of my commanding officers. So the next step after a battalion is brigade. A brigade has 3 or more battalions. And I told the commanding officers, you are the bulwark of Indian Army. You are the pillars on which the Indian Army stands. You have more powers than I have. A commanding officer of a battalion or a regiment has more powers than a brigade commander or a major general or a corps commander, lieutenant general, or army commander has. None of them can give all these things, two, three things I mentioned, and then there are some more. So the point is, there is a lot of hue and cry uh, in the legal circles. Why should this be given? But why should such sweeping powers be given to commanding officer? But my point to you, I put to you, who else has this kind of onerous responsibility of delivering outcomes that deal with life and death in an operational scenario where there is a lot of autonomy and the buck stops with him? So if the commanding officer has to perform, he has to be allowed this leeway. But let that not alarm everyone. Commanding officer, this is not the only face of commanding officer. He doesn't start using this as a threat or something.
every day.
He is called father of the Paltan, father of the unit. In fact, the colloquial word is he's the old man. Even
Old man.
today, the commanding officers are 38, 37 years old. We used to be 40, 40 plus in our times. Even then, this phrase continues, old man. So he has a lot of compassion, sympathy. He knows all his men by name. When I was commanding officer on the LOC, I used to take pride in saying that I can recognize every man of my unit from the back of his head. So he knows everyone. He knows about a lot of them. He knows their family issues, problems, or something. He conducts 10 to 15 interviews every day, just like that, meaning for no reason. He talks to the men. He asks them about their family issues. The commanding officers are so benevolent, like a father figure. He takes care of their family issues. Somebody's child is not getting admission. Somebody's father is not getting good treatment, so he will make arrangements. So there are so many facets to a commanding officer. Now, a commanding officer has to, like I said, lead by example. He has all these facets. He has some powers, he has some responsibilities, he has some moral obligations all towards his soldiers. So all that put together are only enablers. But at the end of it, when it comes to combat, nothing energizes troops more than a leader who leads from the front. Look at Kargil war. Everyone today, every year when those months of Kargil war come, we hear those beautiful stories about Dil Mange Morwala, Captain Vikram Batra, Manoj Pandey, all they were all young leaders. They led from the front. So many commanding officers led from the front. And nothing energizes troops more than the leaders leading from the front. Indian Army has the highest officer to man, that is soldier, when we just say officer to man for soldiers, officer to soldier casualty ratio in the world. We have the highest. And that shows that our officers lead from the front. As a commanding officer on LOC over 3 years, we had some stupendous successes, records of 100. It was a record of 106 to our credit, a lot of elimination of terrorists, all that. I lost 8 soldiers during my 3 years. 2 of them were majors. What does that show? So 2 majors and 6 jawans. Several others were injured. But it shows that officers, our young leaders, lead from the front. So this is the metal. They are the ones who become commanding officers later. So this is the metal that our leaders are made of. So that was, we can discuss more, but then that was my mind about commanding officer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe yes. And then, yes, sir. Now I'll yield the floor to you. And
Yeah.
thereafter, I want to talk about higher leadership, because command
Right.
goes on every level.
Yeah. Certain things which I want to qualify what General Dua said. One must be very clear. The command of a unit, a command by a colonel, a battalion, a artillery unit, or a armored regiment, or a signal regiment, or a engineer regiment, or a ASC unit, or a ordnance unit. The command of a colonel is the highest command where you're in direct contact with troops.
Yeah.
You are answerable for their actions. You are responsible for execution of the task given to you, right? To the seniors. You are also answerable to those people, that body of troops, for your behavior and your orders and everything to ensure. Because this answerability is two ways. And I don't think there is any other appointment anywhere in our system where such kind of responsibility, authority, answerability, and privileges, let me also come to the word of privileges, are given to the commanding officer. And the commanding officer is given the privileges not for fun, he is given the privileges of a father. Since he is the old man and is a father, everyone respects him. And like General Dua said, when you've been in operations with them, right from the time you are a platoon commander and a company commander and a second in command, and by the time you become a platoon commander, right, you are really the father figure of this whole lot, like you said. Okay. And everyone knows everyone. And they know that you are the one who is the eldest in that family, eldest with the most experience, and hence they treat you well and much beyond the normal expectation, right? Because you're their father, you're the old man of that unit, right? The second thing is, you know, this is the only place where you really have the power of life of a on a person. The duty you send to him can get him killed, like what General Dua says. If he's lost 8 people, it's the power of life over those people which he had to exercise. His orders he had to exercise, which resulted in that death of 8 officers and men.
Uh, I think I don't know if I can be heard because I think General Shankar, we've lost the connection. I'm sure he will be back soon. All right. So let me continue to talk, continue while General Shankar comes back. Like General Shankar said, if we have to move up the chain, if we have, like I started from a section commander to a battalion commander, and now, like General Shankar started saying, let's move ahead. Like General Shankar said, the first difference is after a battalion commander. The battalion commander is the last level where he is in contact with troops. I had jotted down 5 points, and why I've jotted down, this is the first time I'm jotting down points because I don't. This is a very important topic. I don't want to miss the points or the sequence. So, first point was removed from direct contact with ground level. That means the command higher than this is a brigade commander or a GOC or a corps commander. So, what happens is that he is not in direct contact with troops. Also, what starts at commanding officer level also, but higher levels, it is a little more so that higher commanders have to have tolerance for ambiguity. Now, what I mean by that is that company commander is given direct orders by CO, by the commanding officer. You will attack from the left, you will attack from the right, and now they will carry on the job, carry out the task to their best combat efficiency. But the commanding officer, when he is given directions, similarly, when the brigade commander receives his instructions, it is directions lower below, but instructions at the higher levels, because a broad mission is given at higher levels and they have to execute. And that's where tolerance for ambiguity comes. There is you don't get precise instructions. You just get the mission as far as commanding officer is concerned. He makes up his mind which company will go from where, what support will come from there. If he needs additional resources, he asks the brigade commander. So that's the difference I'm trying to bring. Below commanding officer, it is clear directions. Above that, there is a little tolerance for ambiguity. So you have to decide, you have to operationalize, you have to plan an operation. As you go higher, the next issue is the role, guidance role comes in. There is a role of guidance. You have to guide your subordinates. When I was a brigade commander, when you're a division commander, you are more into guidance role because you are not directly leading the troops. You are not going to lead the troops directly. You are not going to be in in the line of fire. You will be an enabler from the back, from behind. And next, very important function of senior leaders, they have to absorb the pressure. There will be pressure from top, from the hierarchy, that this has to be done, this must be completed. But if in your judgment it says, no, this is too risky a task, or I cannot complete it in this time, or this task is too difficult for one battalion or something, then you have to urge your senior commanders. You have to absorb that pressure and not just pass it down. There lies the difference. There lies the rub for senior levels of command. We are talking of command. So that don't have to pass down the pressure. And the last thing I noted down here, don't isolate yourself. It is for the senior levels, it is very important. Some of them isolate, some try to micromanage the commanding officer or the junior levels. No micromanagement, no isolation. You should not isolate yourself. You should be approachable. You should listen to everybody before making decisions because these are matters of life and death. I think General Shankar is back on, right,
Yeah, yeah.
sir?
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So the senior levels, when you come to senior levels, you need to be an enabler, a guidance provider. You need to make sure any other logistic or operational support they require, you are able to give them. When he wants guidance and he looks up to you, a subordinate commander, let's say a commanding officer, I several times walked up to my brigade commander and said, sir, this is the thing, what should I do? I had a very good brigade commander, Brigadier Sekhon, later retired as a Director General of Military Operations from Sikhalai Regiment. He says, this is your decision. But if I were to tell you these are the options, these are the possibilities, that's the kind of guidance you need. So I feel I'll end up with this sentence. We'll have more Q&A this time today rather than us talking only. I feel up to level of battalion commander, you lead from the front. But above battalion commander, that is a command of brigade commander, division commander, corps commander, army commander, you lead from behind. You lead. You are an enabler. You lead from the behind means you are. Somewhere I read a very beautiful sentence which said, at the highest levels, the leader is like a shoehorn. You use it to put your foot in the shoe, and then quietly the shoehorn is removed. That means he does not claim credit, he does not make his presence felt, he does not come and lead from front, he doesn't say dhawa, charge, he doesn't give that kind of josh. He enables, he motivates by his own dint of personality, he does everything, but then he leaves it to the battalion commander, to the operational commanders to execute the operation. General Shankar sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot. I think you covered the entire business of what is command in a very clear and concise manner. Uh, Let me come to the issue which why I started this whole thing. As you know, this business of women in command has come in the media. A lot of noise about it because a letter from a co-commander to the army commander was leaked into the environment. And almost everyone, Tom, Dick, Harry, and Mary, started talking about it. And well, uh, we'll come to that. And as a result, the issue of women in command has become a point which needs a larger understanding and a wider acceptance as days go by. Because otherwise, this is the first stages, and it's good that this problem has come up in this manner,
Yes.
because later on we can handle it better.
Yes.
To that end, we yesterday I spoke to another co-commander, General Pandey, on women officers in command. It was a very nice discussion. We'll not go into that part of the story, but we'll get back to what I think we need to discuss. I would like your views of this entire story of woman in command, notwithstanding what's come out in the
Yeah.
news.
No, I thanks for giving me the opportunity. I had noted that, though you had a discussion, but today's viewers, when we are
No,
talking
it's a
about command,
different.
we must touch.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
must touch.
yeah, yeah. No,
So,
we
so I
must touch. And
let me tell.
1 minute, 1 minute. I'm giving the viewers a different perspective
Yeah,
because there's no one single perspective. There's no one single a silver bullet
yeah,
which solves the problem of
right.
woman in command. This is
And
a
and
new thing which we have started, and I think we need a range of views to go
yeah,
ahead
and
as a system. Yeah,
so and it helps that I have not seen your yesterday's
yeah,
episode because you know I was traveling. I was not in Delhi. Okay, so when the day this letter broke the headlines, I rang up that concerned corps commander. He was a brigade commander under me. I know him very well. And I had a frank discussion. I said, what was this all about? By that time, it was all over the media. I read that letter. So I will not tell you his response, but I will
yeah.
just,
That's okay.
because I'll discuss that. But I will tell you his credentials. Apart from being an operational commander, he has also been in the military secretary's branch, which handles the HR issues of officers of the Indian Army, which we can understand because General Shankar and I were also in the same military secretary's branch. General Shankar has done more than 1 10 years, but we were posted together also as colonels in the same branch. So we understand the HR issues of officers. What he has done essentially in his letter to his superior, who's the army commander, he has, at towards the end of his tenure, he has given his impressions about women officers, how they have performed in command. Where is the need? Why did he pick up? You may think, why did he suddenly write a letter on his own initiative? He was not asked for it. That very day, the day this letter broke out, coincidentally, I rang him up because I knew him well. That evening, I was speaking to Vishnu Shom on NDTV on this topic. I was invited to discuss. So, and I, of course, spoke, whatever I spoke there was, you get limited 4 or 5 minutes. But here, and there were other panelists. But so I have said this, it is available online. What was the need? I'll get back to the point for him to write about women in command. Look, Indian Army was not in favor initially of giving permanent commission to women officers. It came as a result of a Supreme Court directive. So it came a couple of years ago and it gave two things together. It said you have to give them, Supreme Court said, you have to give them permanent commission and you have to give them command of units. Now, let me put it the other way around to explain. Had it been left to the army, we would have given them permanent commission and we would have groomed them for command. The grooming of for command could not be done because the order came two years ago that you have to give them command and permanent commission and command simultaneously. Now they have been in command for a little over 1 year. So what this corps commander is doing, and this is a process in all the services, that we take a mid-course correction, we review any new plan, scheme, project, anything that is being implemented, and we give a feedback so that we can improve the system. Now, let me also take a 1 odd minute to explain what do I mean by grooming for command. Like we spoke about company commanders, a major, he does a course called junior command course. We prepare him to become a commander of command a company. So it's a 3 months course that is done in Army War College in Mau. near Indore. Then there is a senior command course. We prepare an officer when he is about to become a commanding officer of a battalion, which is such an onerous responsibility, which is so important that we've discussed. Better part of it, our discussion is on a CO. We have a senior command course. Similarly, at the Army War College, every officer who becomes a commanding officer is put through that course. In between these two, there is also another course which is competitive. Everyone doesn't do it, but there is an option for those who qualify after an entrance test. They do a course called Defense Services Staff College course. It is done in Defense Services Staff College
Wellington.
for 1 year in Wellington, in Tamil Nadu. So these are the uh, these are the these are the courses. Then there is to prepare for command, to groom to become a commanding officer. Then there is also a set of, like we have dealt with in MS branch, military secretary branch, with these issues. You have to have two criteria reports minimum. For two, you have to command a company for 2 years minimum to be able to become a commanding officer. If you have not been able to command for 2 years, you have gone on staff and other appointments, UN assignment, etc., then you will not get command of a battalion. So you have to put in those 2 years or more as a company commander. And there are a few other
And
things.
you're
And
assessed there. No, no, and you're
as
assessed. You're
assessed,
you're
you
assessed
are,
there for
and
suitability for command.
yes, and it is given, it is written by the commanding officer whether you are suitable for command or not, by your nature, by your competence, by your empathy, by all these subtotal of you as a professional and as human being. So all this process has not taken place for these women officers. There are 108 of women officers today in the whole Indian Army who became commanding officers last year, or yes, last year. Uh,
One
yeah,
1 minute, sir. Just do a 1 minute. There's another part of preparing for command, which is not formal. It is highly informal, but very important. Every senior officer sees a junior and he says, "Is this chap fit for command or not?" And accordingly, throughout your service, you're trained for command by these officers.
yeah,
It is not one officer. It could be one commanding officer. It could be a battery commander. I mean, your company commander when you're a youngster, right?
you,
Or your
you are in,
brigade commander when you're a major or a,
yeah,
you know.
you are
So
informally
they give
informally mentored, informally
inform,
mentored
yeah,
for command and
mentored.
higher
It is
positions.
mentoring. It is
Mentored,
mentoring. And
yeah,
secondly, based on your performance in various courses, in your reports, in your unit, your strength on staff. Depending on the staff in which you're sent, you're again assessed there and exposed to higher levels of command. So you know when you become a commanding officer how higher commanders behave or higher commanders carry out their jobs. So this
right.
business of preparation for command or training for command is two channels. One is the formal channel and the other is the informal experiential channel.
Yeah,
And the sum total of this qualifies the chap to become a commanding officer or not. I hope
and
I've
also,
clarified
yeah,
this. Yeah,
yeah,
please add.
thanks. Also, like you said, so I didn't get into too many details. For example, I informed you all viewers that we have a staff course, a staff college course for 1 year. It's not 2 3 months course, which are like junior command and senior command. 1 year. So 1 year of training. After that course qualifies you for certain staff appointments, which are not command, but they are very important for your understanding of how commands function. You work directly under a brigade commander or a divisional commander or a corps commander, in his staff. So you understand how senior officers function, what is expected out of commanding officers, and how they are seen at a higher level. So that is where General Shankar was mentioning mentoring comes in. So there is a lot of formal and informal grooming for command. Now, what this corps commander has done in his letter, being an ex or a former military secretary's branch officer who deals with HR issues, he has given a feedback. What is the purpose of the feedback? If you please go and read the letter, it is all available all over the social media. Firstly, he says his last page, last two pages, in fact, better part of last two pages are devoted to so therefore, and he starts like this. Therefore, these are the mid-course corrections we need to take. We meaning army needs to take. We must give them these grooming. We must do all this, the things that I've been speaking of. And so he's listed out points. That is the purpose of this letter. In fact, there is one small paragraph where he writes, women officers are an empowered lot. This is not a criticism. He says they are an empowered lot. And he says we need to groom them from command. Just because the Supreme Court did not gave an order and we had to follow it, we did it, we meaning army did it, and they were put in command. It is not to say all women commanding officers are not performing well. He has based his uh, opinion or assessment based on in his command in his corps there were 8 women officers who were commanding units. So he's just given steps to be taken. This is a confidential and a privileged information. In fact, this is what I asked Vishnu on NDTV. I don't know how the press has got it, and if we talk about the ethics of the thing, it's a debate, separate debate by itself. But the fact is that it was a mid-course correction given in a positive manner. The naysayers have latched on to some negative communication, some phrases here or there, because some officers must have behaved like that. So I'm not commenting on that. The idea overall is that anyway, this letter has generated this. It has focused everyone more. Every officer of every commander, a senior officer of the Indian Army, it has focused us more clearly now that we need to groom these officers. These courses and all have started for them, will start now onwards. But then those in between who have passed that age for doing that course, they can't be doing that course now because she's just going to become a commanding officer. So, in nutshell, it was a mid-course correction, a very constructive feedback that was being given to a superior, and which the Indian Army is to adopt.
Yeah, I think that's a fair one. I'd like to tell everyone one issue. A lot of discussion has taken place on privileges of command and why about senior officers X, Y, Z. The Indian Army and the Indian Army officers live on something called the Chetwood Credo. I'd like to tell what this Chetwood Credo is because that is the overriding credo by which we have lived, and that's the overriding credo by which we will die also. What is that? It says the safety, welfare, and honor of the country comes first every time and always. The safety, honor, and welfare of the troops you command comes next. Your own safety, comfort, and welfare comes last. Okay? So, and this is something which all of us learn the day we enter the Indian Military Academy, and then it is ingrained in us. And to a large extent, unfortunately, because of the way the court rulings came, the legalities came, and all that, these lady officers who were put in command were not groomed fully on these lines, were not prepared fully on these lines. I'm sure they would have also read the Chetwood Credo in the academy where they were. It's not that they're not read, but that credo doesn't come into your blood overnight. It takes time to come into your blood. And it takes time to come into your blood. And it is when you are a commanding officer, you actually start realizing the importance of this Chetwood Credo. Before that, you don't realize it, right? And that's how deep that credo is, and that's how deep the privilege of command is. Your views on this, and I'll take questions after this.
No, thank you, sir. As far as this Chetwood Credo is concerned, I think that is the uh, cornerstone the touchstone, the faith stone that we all officers live and die by. Uh,
Yeah,
you are right to say. So this it come, and uh, we're not talking about women officers anymore. The point is there are good and bad commanders, both in males and females. There are.
yeah.
There is no denying. We are human beings, but that will happen. So, but I would just end by saying that command still at every level is a privilege. Fortunate are those of us, those of who got the privilege to command. Because while it's an onerous responsibility, pressure, but there is a soldierly satisfaction in doing that at every level, and battalion commander is the best. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll now take a few questions which have come our way. Salute General Ravi Shankar and General Satish Dua. Sir, will there be instances when a corps commander talks to unit commander bypassing a brigade commander or a dev commander? Yeah, all yours.
So there are two things of talking. A corps commander will talk to his brigade command, battalion commander directly. I have been a corps commander. I have gone and motivated my battalion commanders directly. But it is not bypassing the brigade commander. The brigade commander is present over there. It is in front of him. When you motivate troops, when you give them Josh, but operational orders or directives are not given directly. Those are given through our chain of command. They will go reach him only through the brigade commander. That's the way it is.
Yeah, yeah, and there might be an occasion where operationally the corps commander has to interact with the battalion commander or the regiment commander at the bottom. It's not out of equation, but then it's the duty of the corps commander and the battalion commander to keep the intermediary, that's the brigade commander and the div commander, apprised of this conversation so that everyone knows up and down the chain what has happened. This is a normal custom, and it is not something which we don't know how to handle. And normally, once you reach that level, you don't you don't short circuit things, right? We are not, that's the diciest thing one can do. Okay. The next thing is advice to YOs as to how to gain respect of troops when you are new to the unit. Also, how do you maintain the exact balance between closeness and distance you have to maintain from troops?
Very good question. When we were commissioned, initially, when you are commissioned in your unit, you are treated as a Jawan. For depending from unit to unit, anything between 4 to 8 weeks, you are put along with Jawans. You don't stay in the officer's base, you stay in the barracks. You do sentry duty, you do quarter guard duty, you do everything like a Jawan. You don't even wear your rank so that Jawans don't see you as a lieutenant now. In our days, it used to be second lieutenant. So then you perform duties of different appointments. How to gain respect? That is the time, because it is the first time Jawans are seeing you. Everyone is assessing you. Today's Jawan is very much aware, more educated. He uses the same WhatsApp and Facebook as you and I do. He uses the same, sees the same channels on the TV or the same OTT Netflix. But during our times, when Jawans were not so educated, when there was no social media, there was no TV. TV was there, but it was not so popular that everyone had it. So even then, our Jawans could assess the officer in the first 1 week very quickly. So you advise the YOs always to make your mark. Then you run with them, you run faster than them. You fire with them, you fire better than them. You anything that you do, you have to show them that you excel. And suppose you don't, there may be some who cannot. But when men see that you are making an honest effort to do better, they will respect you. And your empathy, your good fellow human being nature will always shine through. And that is the best way that you become close to men. As to closeness and distance, your heart will tell you. You always remain close to the men, bum some buddies, but they will not take liberties. They will maintain the correct distance. And you can put your arms around his shoulder and talk to him. He's never going to do that. So that's the difference. So be open to men. That's our advice to Vayus always.
Okay. How can an experienced, unelected court headed by my lords dictate a decision? It's a matter of national security that is at sea, and it should be left to the generals.
Yes, I have a very short answer for that. Please do that when you see a podcast of judges. Ask them.
Yeah, I think so. Right. Okay. This is a very interesting thing. It's a little offbeat, but I think it's worth it. By Ming Wu. There is a view on the Chinese internet that, in general, senior officers at the general level are often detached from the grassroots soldiers and don't have the authority to command the soldiers. Okay. The ones who can really command the soldiers are the regiment commanders and battalion commanders. This point was highlighted in the Korean martial law incident. The senior generals agreed to martial law, but the grassroots soldiers did not carry out the order at all and just perfunctorily handled it. How do the two generals evaluate this view?
So I see the viewer who's asked this question is perhaps of Chinese origin, Mr. Ming Wu, and it's an interesting question. I think, sir, if you just scroll back to the first part, can you do that?
Yeah,
There are three in three.
yeah. There's a
So,
view
senior
on the
officers,
Chinese.
yes. So, when you say the general officers are not often detached from grassroots soldiers and they don't have authority to command, I you may have a point in something that you may have heard or seen, but I think the difference in the army is that even the army chief, as a lieutenant, has done patrolling on the LOC. So we have been through soldiering till the command of a battalion. So most of us, I would say, have enough experience of grassroots. I, as a corps commander, I could think of doing those what is now famously known as surgical strikes in after Uri attack, just because I had done many operations, very audacious operations on the LOC as major, as colonel, as company commander, as battalion commander. We have been in combat, so you can do that. So I don't think every general would be detached, as you say. Most of us have very solid moorings in the ground route at the ground level. Your example of Koreans, I cannot. This is a very recent incident. I cannot really comment on that. That generals did that. I suppose here also today, like I said earlier, soldiers are very aware. If somebody tries to pass a wrong order, if a general was to pass an order that soldiers should start opening firing at a mob, I don't think our soldiers will do it. So everyone is very aware. But beyond that, I would not like to comment on the Korean issue.
Yeah, let me put it across. You see, let's see how Indian Army would have handled such a situation based on our experience. I will not comment on how Korean Army did or tomorrow how Chinese Army will do or the PLA will do. The Indian Army, like what General Satish Dua said, has got very close connect with the grassroots. Our system is such that our connect is very good. We know how people behave on ground. As you become senior, you know how people behave on ground. And you have a lot of the Indian Army, the way things are, there's a lot of interaction between a senior officer and his junior commanders, right? And you expose yourself to troops quite regularly. To that extent, you know how your troops will behave. It's not as if one doesn't know. Now, in a case of this nature, which has a political connotation, Indian Army wouldn't have actually passed this order immediately. Indian Army would have first communicated. I don't know if that's been done in Korean Army or not, but Indian Army would have communicated this thing down to the battalion level and said, look, this is the thing, this is a sensitive thing. So you have to do this. If there's any issues, let us know. So that even before an incident like this happens, it would have got tripped and you would have then taken corrective action, right? And
Yep.
to some extent, you would have already had a feedback on this to advise your political bosses, look, this is the feeling down below. This is the repercussion of what you're telling. And after that, if you still tell, it's not going to be an easy affair. But having said that, let me qualify one thing. In the Indian Army, in the Indian Armed Forces and the Constitution of India, there is no room for martial law. So this system, this thing which you expect or which you are painting will not arise. It is just not there. We don't have this thing of martial law is just not there. Yeah. Anything else, Satish?
No, very well. The last one, very well said. Uh, our democracy is very different. You look around us. All our neighboring
Mhm.
countries have similar problems, but never in our
Yeah.
country. Our army is totally apolitical. It doesn't matter to us which party is in power. Our allegiance is to the constitution and to the country.
Yeah. Let me because this is a very important thing which I think is needs a little more elaboration. Uh, Let me also put it. There was a time in this country in the 90s where we had governments changing every year, right? And even before that, we had weak governments in place. And there were a lot of talk in public that, look, why shouldn't the armed forces take over, this, that, all that? But never for a single day, not even a single day, not even a single chief ever dreamt of it. I'm I'm very clear about it because constitutionally, the chief of the army staff or the chief of the naval staff or the chief of the air staff don't have a role to play in change of governments. They don't have a role to play on anything. And in our constitution, the armed forces have to take orders from the president of India. The government of the day can go, the president of India doesn't go. So there is no question of a there is just no question of a issue of martial law because the president of the country is always there. If the president is not there, there is someone appointed as a president. Is a vice president. If the vice president is not there, just the Chief Justice of India, if I'm not mistaken, who's appointed. So we
That's
have
correct.
our democracy is so strong that this question doesn't arise. But there are many cases where we've had to take sensitive decisions on issues where when we have to take those sensitive decisions, the troops on the ground are first sensitized of these repercussions of that decision, and then action is taken. I think this is a very important point. If you have anything to add, Satish, please do add.
No, thank you, sir.
Okay. I'll take a last question. Sir, I'm a vegetarian and can't bear to see suffering of animals. I've heard that in many units, the newcomer officer is made to partake in animal sacrifices. If I don't partake, I'm a pariah. Am I a pariah?
Okay, so it is like this. Indian Army officers, when we are posted to a battalion, a unit, we adopt the religion, the customs, the culture, the language of our troops. Like I am from Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry Regiment. I have Muslims from Jammu and Kashmir only, Dogras and Sikhs. and now of late a little smattering of Ladakhis, Buddhists. So when I am with troops, I have observed Rosa during Ramzan. I fast during Navratra. And in my personal life, actually, I don't fast at all. But when I was with troops, I used to do everything. So you adopt that custom. When you talk about partaking in animal sacrifice, it doesn't happen in most of the units.
everywhere.
It doesn't happen most of the units. But in some units, where troops come from a region where this is a part of their religious culture, religion says it, that is where they participate. So an officer's religion, it doesn't remain Christian, Hindu, Sikh, Muslim.
Mm.
Officers' religion becomes that of troops' religion. In fact, as young officers, all of us have done. We have gone on long-range patrols amongst the area from where our troops come from. So you learn their culture. We nowadays it doesn't happen. But हमारे time में we used to have exams in the
Yeah,
language of the troop. अभी भी people learn the language. I don't know, every regiment doesn't perhaps go with that exam nowadays, but the fact is that you adopt that religion. So, in short, that is the answer to your question. It is only where the religion of the troops demands that they may have to take part.
yeah. I think so. We'll leave it at that. The last, very last question. We have to draw a distinction between combat and war command.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
when you say combat, when you say war command, war um, is fought between two countries. So you're defending in war, a soldier, a battalion, troops, whatever, everyone is defending the sovereignty of the country. So we fight with the ethos of last man, last round. Round means bullet in the army. So we will perish till the last man, but we will not let the enemy come. We will die. 22 men died in Saragadi. You must have seen that movie, Akshay Kumar ka famous movie. Rizangla, 120 men in a company, 114 died. They said, we will perish, but we will not move from here. Similarly, Longewala, border movie dekha hoga. Though there it was our victory, but they all said, we, against this massive onslaught of tanks and soldiers of Pakistan army, we will die, but we will not move. They finally could achieve success. That is war command. You die. Combat. What is combat? The second one. Combat is combat is against non-state actors, these terrorists. I often have said, even as corps commander of 15 Corps in Kashmir Valley, and I have been in counter-terrorism. In all my commands, I've been in operations, from major to lieutenant general. And I have always said, that means when I said even as corps commander, that means there was a large body of troops that we were commanding, more than 1 lakh. And then I said to them also, the life of one soldier, I mean, I'll put it other way around. 50 of these terrorists are not worth one of my soldiers. And I would say, here we don't have to fight to last man, last round. Terrorist has a certain shelf life. आज नहीं तो कल मरेगा, इधर नहीं तो उधर मरेगा. But we should not lose our soldiers. We should not have casualties. There is the difference between combat and war against the country.
Yeah. So the last comment. Your life lesson and wisdom from being in the forces, we will endure to apply in corporate and daily life. Thanks a lot, Arjunavat. And thanks a lot, General Dua, for this enlightening session where you highlighted what the privileges of command are. The privileges of command is only one. It's a privilege to command, and it's an
Absolutely.
honor to command, right? And you serve the troops best when you command them well. That's the way I look. I've always looked at command. The command gives you a lot of joy, right? And when you finish your command, and your men look up to you. There are a lot of people who'll say, "Command, my command was nice, uneventful, and all that." And those are the commanders who are fast forgotten. Command full of difficulties, challenges, everything, setbacks, and recovery are those commands which are always remembered. It's up to most of us to be good or bad commanders because it's our nature which will come out in command, right? So, this is what I wanted to finally tell you. Command is a privilege which is given to very few people in India, and they have to live up to it. Thanks a lot for everyone who's attended. I'd request all of you, those of you who like this video, please press the like button. And those of you who feel that this is worth it, please send it to all your friends. Why I'm saying is, I'm sure this will be seen by a lot of people for the simple reason. Yesterday, I did this talk with General Pandey. Not many people saw it yesterday, but now I see a lot of people have started seeing it. And I do hope, and I'm very confident that a lot of people will see this also. And a lot of people will see the next video, which should see the next video on leadership, which is going to come by through Ghana Shot. With this, thank you, good evening, and Jai Hind to all of you. And General Dua, thanks a lot, and Jai Hind to you also.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.